features many mechanical improvements. This film highlights the important servicing changes. To start with, all side glass is curved. The rear quarter windows and rear door glass are of the bolt-on type. Glass retaining bolts are tightened to 50 inch-pounds maximum. Convertibles are improved too. For example, the all-electric mechanism for the optional power top is behind the rear seat. Electric seat-type actuating cables run from the electric motor to the sector gear actuators at the lower end of each roof rear side rail. In operation, the actuating cables rotate the sector gears to raise or lower the top. If the sector gears are out of phase, disconnect the cables from the motor assembly. Raise the top manually and lock it to the windshield header. Then reconnect the cables. Chassis changes include driving the speedometer from the left front wheel. The cable housing is clamp bracket supported inboard of the wheel to guide the cable through the hollow left front spindle. The square speedometer cable end pilots into the square center hole of a plastic insert in the hub grease cap. Remove and replace the hub grease cap carefully to prevent damage to the plastic insert. An E-type safety lock ring is used on the left front spindle only. Be sure it is securely seated. Front camber adjustment is the cam and bolt arrangement on the lower control arm. To adjust, loosen the nut and rotate the cam bolt. Camber is 1 degree positive and within 1/2 degree of the opposite side. In the rear, the suspension system is new. The rear wheels are spindle mounted in trailing torque arms that absorb accelerating and braking forces. The torque arm mounting bracket has slotted holes for adjusting rear wheel toe ends. A pointer is stamped into the underside of the body and vertical lines are stamped into the torque arm bracket. Each space equals 1/64 of an inch at the wheel. Total rear wheel toe end should be 1/8 to 3/8 of an inch. The combination of axle drive shaft and lower rear strut rod acts as upper and lower control rods for the torque arm. The lower strut rod is longer, and the result is a short, long arm type of camber control. To adjust the camber, loosen the nut on the adjusting cam bolt. Then turn the adjusting cam bolt, check the setting, and retighten. Each space on the cam changes the camber about 1 degree. Rear wheel camber should be 0 to 1 degree negative. To remove a rear axle drive shaft, first place jack stands under the lifting pads just ahead of the rear wheels. Then jack up the torque arm until the drive shaft is at or near curb position. Next, remove the bolts and retaining straps from the axle drive shaft trunnions. Pry the axle drive shaft out of the yoke at each end. The inner end yoke is bolted to the differential side gear. Once tightened, the bolt is secured with a locking plate. At the outer end, the drive flange is splined to the spindle and retained by a nut and cotter pin. The axle drive shaft universal joints do not require periodic lubrication or servicing. If, however, they are disassembled, they should be repacked with a high melting point wheel bearing grease. New dust seals should also be installed. To remove a rear spindle, remove the flange nut and washer and install the special nut. Install the puller plate on the flange with the longer bolts provided. Thread the puller bolt into the puller plate and remove the spindle flange. Next, remove the nuts from 2 diagonally opposite spindle support retaining studs. Install the special jack screw adapters over each of the studs, making sure that they bottom. Thread the special nuts over the adapters, then press the spindle out by turning each nut in equal amounts. When new rear spindle parts are installed, bearing end play must be readjusted with shims. Install the dummy spindle with the bearings and spacer into the spindle support. Tighten the knurled nuts finger tight to remove all end play and check the movement of the tool center bar with a dial indicator. Add 97 thousandths to this figure. Select a shim 1 to 6 thousandths greater than this total, which will result in the proper end play. There's a new neutral safety switch on the Power Glide transmission. The shift pattern and cable adjustment are unchanged, but servicing the switch is slightly different. First, lower the steering column and mast jacket. Next, remove the shift lever knobs and other switch bezels. Then lower the instrument cluster. Next, remove the retaining ring securing the switch lever arm to the range selector assembly. Remove the two attaching screws and then disconnect the wiring harness. After installing a new switch, adjust by locating the range selector in neutral with the two retaining screws slightly loose. Extend the switch lever to its outermost position and tighten the screws. Check the operation by starting the engine. It should start in the neutral position only. On vehicles with manual transmissions, the clutch and brake pedals are now mounted on one long pivot shaft with Delrin-type bearings. To service, remove the nut and pedal assembly from the left end and the bolt, lock washer, and special flat washer from the dash support. Third, disconnect the clutch cable. When reinstalling, use a little lubricant plate on the bearing.